I feel like I need some sort of wicked drum roll intro with like some cymbals crashing, like a big swelling
Hmm.
epic symphony, not like Interstellar, like bah, nothing like that, but I'm talking like just this building thing because ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the
That's
summer,
Inception.
we've reached June. Yes. Oh, sorry, Inception, whatever. And no, Interstellar is
How
like the
dare you? How dare you mix up Christopher
I
Nolan
know.
sci-fi movies that start with an I?
I know, and you're like currently working through them, so that's my bad. I totally forgot about that.
We are
But
no
ladies and
The
gentlemen,
Interstellar score is crazy.
it's yes, it is. We should do an entire episode about that. We should do like a breakdown of that. I think that'd be fun. But hey, we're gonna jump because we have reached June 2024, and we are into our
Hmm.
very first episode of the Roundtable Rumble. Now, this Roundtable Rumble is a 64 character battle to the death with our Lux community really taking control of the voting in this. We're going to be voting on the top video
Hmm.
game characters of all time. I think we labeled it the best video game characters of all time. And so
Greatest.
Templar, thank you. Greatest. Sorry. Yes, greatest. So, Templar, thank you for joining me and thank you for spearheading the creation of this. When we
Hmm.
say greatest, what does that actually mean in your head? What is the title of greatest mean?
It's tough. This is a tough one. Like this is a thing in sports. People
The
will talk
goat?
about who's the greatest, the goat, right? And now I'm so tired of people throwing around like, oh, these are the goats. It's like that's not how that works. Like
Right.
that's not what it's like. What do we mean? It's hard to say. My criteria, how I'm looking at this, is a couple ways. To me, there's two main categories that I'm going to consider characters. One is how iconic are they?
Okay.
So, how visually iconic, you see them, you know who they are, even if you haven't really played the games, even if you're not that familiar. It's like, that's Mario. You know that's Mario. Almost everybody knows that's Mario. Like, how iconic they are, how visually, like, identifiable are they? The other aspect to it, which could be broken down into more categories, but I'm gonna keep as sort of one general, is like, are they an actual three-dimensional character?
Hmm.
Like, is there a personality to this character? Like, do they have motivations? Do they change over the course of games? Do they like? Is there an actual character there to kind of look at or investigate?
Hmm.
So that's how I'm looking at it. Because to me, if it was most iconic, that's one thing. Best is sort of tough to say. Greatest to me has to be some sort of synergy of those two ideas of iconic and sort of depth of actual character, personality, that there are many aspects to this. That's how I'm looking at it. That's how I'm sort of categorizing it.
Yeah, I mean, you said three dimensional, and I'm sitting here automatically thinking like, well, crap, our number one thing, Mario's out because there is Mario in 2D, not in 3D, and that was a little dad joke I played in my head. But the the idea of greatest, you're right. I think that having dimensions and having layers as a character is a big thing. I also think for me, on top of all what you just said, which I think is absolutely correct, is the lasting impact. Like, did you walk away from a game with this character? And you're going to notice in
Mm-hmm.
this list, there's going to be games that these characters have only been in maybe once or twice. Like I'm looking at a couple, like Joel and Ellie in The Last of
Yep.
Us. They're in here. They've only been in two games. So it's not like they have a run of franchise titles. They're not in every single thing ever. They're not in Smash Brothers. They're not in all of the things that would do that. But did you walk away with a lasting impact? And like I can say, and I'm not going to tip my hand on any of these, but I can say for both Ellie and Joel, I walked away with a lasting impact to me. Character
Mm-hmm.
development wise, yes, but also just like kind of shaken, like it made me perceive what a video game character could do. And then you have, other things like Diddy Kong. Like, well, Diddy Kong didn't necessarily shake me. And spoiler, I'm not going to vote for Diddy Kong when we get there. That's just me. Sorry to all you Kong lovers.
Yes.
But I agree with that. Now, we are talking about the greatest video game characters. Why did we choose video games? Like, why did we land on that for a community kind of summer run here?
There was a lot of ways to go about it, and we talked about a few different ideas. We talked about potentially doing movie characters. We talked about doing different types of films, maybe. Um, but ultimately, we wanted to do something that had the kind of widest accessibility for the server. You know, generally the server is built in some ways around gaming. There's a lot of affinity with gaming. People have different types of games that they play and different things that they might gravitate towards. But overall, you know, there's a sort of alignment with gaming culture within the server, I would say, that we think, and I believe so, would make this kind of the most accessible to the most number of people.
Hmm.
Even if they say only know or at least have played the games and experienced, say, 20 or 30 of the characters, or maybe even fewer, they have some frame of reference with which to vote, with which to engage with this in some ways, and they'll have their favorites, they'll have their ones that they can root for. Whereas movies could be good, but a lot of what movies people see, directors, characters in film, like that's great, and maybe that's something we will do down the road. But ultimately, I feel like that's somewhat distant, a little more distant from the focus of the server and just people's interest and ability to engage with it. And we just wanted to try to reach as many people in the server as possible. I think that was the justification.
Where do you land? This is totally aside, and we can do another podcast about this if we want. But where do you land in the whole video games as art debate that I think seems to rage from time
Mm-hmm.
to time?
I mean, to me, it's kind of a settled discussion. Like, it's one of those things, like, I think you can talk about it, but anyone I think who is plugged into gaming is sort of, if anyone is remotely plugged into gaming and still sort of believes that they can't operate as an art form in terms of storytelling, I don't know, is to me that it's sort of just being willfully blind,
Hmm.
right? Like, if Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg or someone, one of them I remember came out and did say something about gaming,
Yep.
sort of derisively. I think it was a few years ago now.
Yep.
They're both old guys. Like, not to stereotype, there's plenty of older people who play games, but like, I doubt either of those guys really have a real frame of reference for gaming. Like, they haven't played The Last of Us, they haven't played Uncharted 4, they haven't played Halo, they haven't played some of these experiences, right? These games that are really excellent in terms of the storytelling. So like, how would they know?
Mm.
They just have no ability to even really talk about it, and they probably shouldn't,
Mm.
but they do. And so then maybe people have the discussion, but it's not really a discussion for me. Like, to me, it's settled. Of course it can. Of course it is. And then, like, if you look at stuff like the Outer Wilds, and like just in terms of
Oh,
abstract storytelling and like art, depicting art essentially in like visual art um in gaming, I think, yeah, I don't really think there's much there anymore. I think it's pretty much all been been established at this point. So for me, there isn't really much of a debate or much of a discussion to be had there. Not to say we couldn't have it or that it wouldn't be interesting. For me, it's settled, and it's kind of been settled.
that's good. Would you put art into different strata? So like painting and sculpture in one strata and then like movies and books and would you put it all into one strata, or is art is art is art is art all over?
Well,
I know,
that's a
I
big
know, I
discussion.
know, I know, I know we
Yeah.
didn't talk about this at all at the beginning, and so I'm just like leathering these questions at you.
Oh no, that's fine. Well, there's certainly different mediums for art. I mean, gaming, I think, is one that can accomplish almost all of those, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, because there is gaming that is certainly an expression of like musical art form. There's gaming that is expression of visual art forms, in terms of abstract visuals, in terms of graphical fidelity, and just sort of representing the real world in a way. There's so many different versions of sort of beauty that you can see in gaming. Like, you can look at something like, for all its flaws, like, but Horizon Forbidden West is still one of the best looking modern generation games. Like,
Hmm.
that world is gorgeously rendered. But then also you can look at something like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom that has an entirely different art style,
Yeah.
but also renders an absolutely beautiful world and you can accomplish different things with it, um, through that different kind of art style, and the world is still beautiful, but in a very different way. or Ghost of Tsushima maybe is a better example
Ooh.
for like a more realistic type of visual fidelity, right? Um, and then in terms of storytelling, like play through the Mass Effect trilogy and tell me that like gaming can't do character development or
Mm.
relationship building or create moments that are impactful for you. So
Mm.
yeah,
That's
there's
good.
different ways of accomplishing it, and gaming is one that I think in some ways has an advantage because there's so many different elements to it, even beyond something like film, that it can really work on many different levels that other art forms can only focus on singularly.
That's good. Okay, I got us completely off track, and I'm sorry about that. Speaking of Mass Effect, however, we're going to go to our very first kind of matchup. And so, what Templar and I are going to do is we're going to run through these matchups. We're not going to go through every single one, but we kind of wanted to just let everybody know here's what's coming up and how, the ways you can vote. Now, you're going to see that there's already votes put in here. These are just dummy votes. This is not actually technically who we think should win or how we're tipping any scale. We're not doing any of that. This is just kind of the behind the scenes. Like, we had to program this thing, and we're starting off. Yeah,
sure it works.
We were testing, and so I'm not sure if there's a way to like wipe all of the results when we actually open this up. Yeah. Okay, cool. We will clear these results. So there are this is to you, Zeph, and to anybody that's going to start screaming bloody murder about when Sylvanas Windrunner does not win in their category, because Sylvanas is not going to win. I love you, Zeph. That was me poking fun. We're starting. We're starting from zero. So, starting at the top here, number 1 versus number 64. I wanted to have Erdnot Rex in here, and instead Sora won.
So did I.
How are we feeling about this matchup here? I think this is like an overwhelming defeat if I look at it.
Someone had to be the sacrificial lamb for Mario in the first round.
Yes.
We wanted to try to get, we left it up to the server who was going to get into the 64th spot. It was very tight between Rex, or not Rex from the Mass Effect series, and Sora, that guy from Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah,
I did not know his name. Yeah. What's his name from Kingdom Hearts? And I think inevitably, something crazy could happen. Stranger things have happened, but I think whoever won was just going to be the sacrificial lamb for Mario in the first round.
I'm going to be honest. So I think Mario.
It is what it is.
I think Mario makes it at least to like the semifinals.
I think 90%.
Yeah, I think he goes a long way. Yeah.
If he doesn't win the whole thing, not to call the shot, it will be a little surprising to me.
Yeah, it will be an upset. I mean, this will be like, this would be the Kansas City Chiefs not winning the Super Bowl. A huge upset, in my opinion.
This is where my criteria, again, we won't spend too long on each matchup, but like just broadly speaking, this is where my criteria sort of comes in, right? Like in terms of iconography, in terms of being iconic, Mario's one. Yeah. In terms of being a character, Mario isn't a character.
Right.
Right? Like there is no personality, there is no depth, there is no, there are 3 dimensions in games, but there's not 3 dimensions in character, right? There's nothing, he's not a character, he's a caricature, right? Like, so that's where in terms of me, like in this matchup, I would vote for Mario. One, I have no exposure to Kingdom Hearts, so there's that. But like, I think he should get fairly far, and how iconic he is counts for something. But at some point, he's going to come up against a real character, and I'm not going to vote for him for that reason, because he's not a character.
Speaking of real characters, let's move to number 2 here. Link versus Shovel Knight. I think this is also another easy victory, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, Link, I wouldn't be surprised if Mario and Link both end up in the semis. It's Link also similar kind of isn't a character though, right? Like he doesn't speak, he doesn't really have any, like you play through him, maybe more so than Mario in terms of storytelling, but like again, it's kind of just a vessel for you to walk around in, right? From my understanding, my exposure to Zelda games is not a ton, right? So maybe I'm incorrect and he is more of a character than Mario, but again, iconic, yes. Is he an actual character himself? Probably not. And I have no exposure to Shovel Knight, so like I don't really know. I've never played Shovel Knight. So I don't really know. Yeah, I've never played it, so I don't know anything about Shovel Knight. I mean, he's going to take an L here, so that sucks. It's a tough first round matchup for him. It is what it is. But I've heard great things about the game, so
it's good.
You made it into the 64.
Yeah, it's an honor to be nominated, just like the
Yeah.
Grammys. This is, I think, our first tough one. Number 3 versus number 62, Zelda versus Mega Man. And I'm gonna be honest,
Sure.
I don't know who I would vote for. I know what I voted for in the test. Again, these votes do not count. This was just me randomly clicking through a lot of things. I don't know that I would vote for Mega Man over Zelda or Zelda over Mega Man. Your thoughts?
I would probably vote for Mega Man. I mean,
Zelda, though, is a
again,
character.
I have very
Zelda has a lot of character
Sure.
to her, and she is iconic. The games are literally named after her. And this is not me stumping for
Sure.
Zelda, by the way. And Mega Man is he's legitimately just a robot with a buster arm.
Sure, I have more. This is a case where, like, I've played Mega Man games. I have some affinity for Mega Man. I've almost never played a Zelda game, or very, very limited. So I don't have any affinity for Zelda. When it actually comes time for the real vote, I'm not sure what I'll pick. But I could see myself voting for Mega Man just because I've enjoyed that, and I don't have the frame of reference to sort of understand what depth of character Zelda may or may not have. So
Okay. Little known fact: Mega Man's name in Japan is Rokuman or Rockman. Mega Man is Rockman in Japanese.
I believe I have heard that. I watch Summoning Salt, who is a
Yes.
YouTuber. He releases content semi regularly, but he does speed runs, and I believe he has some videos on Mega Man. And he
Rokuman.
covers it there. That's yes.
Peach versus Banjo. I'm just gonna keep going if you don't mind, because that's a yawn to me.
It's whatever. Peach isn't a character. I don't have any real frame of reference for Banjo-Kazooie. I never
Nope.
played Banjo, so I don't
Nope.
know. Yeah.
Mo-
And Peach is really not a character, so
No, Peach is she's a damsel in distress always. But here we go, Luigi versus John Marston. Now I have thoughts about
this is my
this.
first
Same.
This is my first like upset alert one.
Same.
Like
Same here.
because Mario will make it. Luigi, I just don't know. Luigi's equally not a character as
Yes.
Mario is.
Yes.
But Marston is
Yep.
in two excellent games.
Yes.
Like one where you play as only him, and then one where he is heavily featured, and he is a real character with depth and dimension.
And you do play as him later too.
Motivations, and you. That's true. Yeah, that's right. You do play him at the end of.
Spoiler.
I did too.
It's an awesome
Spoilers
part.
Spoilers for that if you haven't played that game from 6 years ago. Yeah, this is an upset alert one for me, and I kind of think Marston should win this one. Like,
I would agree with you. I think Marston has a depth to him. And in fact, I think there's an Arthur Morgan one later as well that we're going to talk about. I think what Rockstar does with their characters is brilliant. And how they make them evil, but also they have like hearts of gold. John Marston is evil with the heart of gold, and like it leaves you conflicted. Whereas with Luigi, my guy's always getting lost and making funny noises when he jumps. So like I don't necessarily know that he's gonna pull through here. I could be wrong. The community could shock me.
I wouldn't be surprised if Luigi wins. Just again, iconography. Like he's just iconic along with Mario. But like I feel like he's less so than Mario.
Yes.
Or he's just like the other Mario.
Yep.
Like that you don't play as much, and it's like it's fine, but Marston's a real character.
Yep.
In two games that are excellent games. Both
Yep.
of them are excellent games.
Yep.
And really do a lot to explore his character in both.
Yep.
So it would be a real shame, I think. And so I'm kind of pulling for Marston here.
Same.
Also, I guess we should mention, because we never did. Sorry, Chino. Just in terms of the seating isn't really like. The seating was in the order Chino and I came up with this list in. So it's not like when you're looking at like, well, why is John Marston at 60? It's like, well, he probably shouldn't be at 60.
No.
But like, this is just the order that we created this list in, because we basically just like created a document, and it was like, okay, who are the characters? And we just went back and forth and picked them. And I think for the most part, it's okay, because like the most iconic, the biggest ones were the ones we thought of first. And then as we went down, it was sort of like going out a bit more, getting ones that were maybe not as likely to advance, things like that. So I think it mostly worked out. But there are some exceptions in a case like this where Marston probably should be a bit higher, but we didn't like curate this seating or anything. So just because I imagine there might be questions about that. It's not like a curated seating. I think it's almost kind of fun that there's some matchups like this in the first round. There aren't too
Yes.
many where it's like, really too bad. It's like, you would have liked to have seen them go farther, and like they got this really brutal matchup in the first round. It's not too bad in terms of that. I think I like the diversity of matchups that we ended up with. So we
Yeah.
didn't feel any kind of need to mess with it. So I just wanted to let people know that as we're just kind of moving on here.
It's a good call. We might need to trim that and make that as a disclaimer up front. Moving along, Yoshi versus Captain Price. One is a dinosaur that you punch in the back of the head, and one is a guy that shoots people from a ghillie suit. I don't really care, honestly.
It's a very different matchup. I mean, I Yoshi again is sort of like even less of a character than Mario is. It's just sort of they're so all of the Mario characters are so iconic that they kind of had to be included.
Yes.
But like the break point on this one, I think in terms of our server is tough. Like I think in terms of general gaming, I would say Captain Price should win this sort of overwhelmingly. I would hope,
Yes.
but I don't think our server has a lot of COD like a lot of affinity for COD as a franchise. I could be, misreading that. So I don't know. So Yoshi might end up winning this one. Like for me, I'm gonna vote for Captain Price because like he's a character that's been pretty well established over many games at this point. Is he a very deep character? Maybe not. Like the COD storytelling of late is certainly nothing to write home about, but you know, he is an actual character. And in terms of the COD universe, the by far the most identifiable and sort of like interesting maybe character.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Agreed.
that's all I have to say about that one.
Battle of the Dragons coming up next. If you call Bowser a dragon, he's like a turtle dragon. Bowser, number 7, Bowser versus number 58, Spyro the Dragon. I'm gonna vote for Bowser because shockingly, what we just said about all of the Mario things, I think Bowser is actually the only one that actually has a little bit of character development, and that's because I played Super Mario RPG where he is, and he also has Jack Black voicing him in the movie. And that song rings true in my life.
Sure. Yeah, I wonder how much the movie will shift it at all because it does actually take these characters and try to make them characters. I'm not really considering the film because I'm considering their video game adaptation,
Sure.
like their video game representations as the character, not the film versions. But yeah, fair enough. And Spyro, I think I liked the Spyro games when I was younger. They kind of like Crash sort of redid the Spyro games and sort of re-released them. Like they kind of, cleaned them up, remastered them a bit. I tried to play them. They do not hold up at all for me now. Like the Crash games absolutely do hold up for me. Like I can pick up, like I was playing the Insane Trilogy like yesterday. I was playing some of the levels from the first Crash game.
Yeah.
Great. Still having fun. Like having a great time with it. Spyro does not hold up, and I think doesn't even have the type of the sort of PlayStation fans that have a love for Crash. I think Spyro has not retained that love over the years, where Crash I think kind of has. So yeah, this one I think is not particularly interesting.
Well, and Crash, we can talk about Crash. We can talk about Crash a little bit more, but Crash has more of a personality than Spyro does. Spyro's just kind of like, I don't know. He's a little cute little dragon running around. Good for him.
Yeah.
Number 8, Sonic versus number 57, Claptrap. So in my list, this was actually one of the ones that I wanted to just camp on real quick. Now maybe it's because I am in that age in my life where Sonic was a big deal when I was growing up. It was Sonic versus Mario. We didn't have platform wars. We had Sonic versus Mario. We had what Sega do, Nintendo don't, those commercials where Sonic was Mario with attitude. And then Claptrap came along, and I don't mind the last couple of Borderlands. That first Borderlands game was awesome in my eyes. Just because of the loot, the colorfulness, like the really kind of, it wasn't crude. It was like almost borderline crude humor. And so you had this kind of icon rebel in Sonic versus like the weird sort of robot that tries to direct you, but also like kind of gleefully watches you die all the time. Like I think there's something there, and I'm gonna have to like sit with this one for a little bit. What are your thoughts on Sonic versus Claptrap here?
I have played Borderlands for a total of like 15 minutes. So
Cool.
I played the first one, I think a little bit. Like I remember playing it, but I maybe played it for an hour. Like I don't even think it was that long though. And I have a real affinity for Sonic. I grew up watching one of the television shows. I
Yes.
had a Sega Genesis. I had a Game Gear. I played like a lot of the Sonic games. And he is sort of, I think, mostly elevated in terms of he's iconic, but there was an effort, I think, even in the games to make Sonic a bit of a character, like in terms of the attitude, and that was sort of an intentional thing. Um, so I don't know. For me, it's going to be Sonic, but that's mostly because I just have no real connection with Claptrap.
Hmm.
So a lot
Fair
of it
enough.
is iconic. A lot of it is just I played Sonic a lot. I watched the show. That's sort of a memory from my childhood that it's not going to be easy to shake
Chili
in
dogs for
terms of
life.
matchups.
Yep. Chili dogs for
Hey,
life. Tails versus McCree. This is kind of a yawner to me.
yeah, I don't
I don't,
care.
I don't really know.
Really.
Moving on, Knuckles
I'll
versus
probably go for
Ezio.
McCree.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
I
I can see that.
this is another. Yeah, yeah. Whatever. It's fine.
Knuckles versus Ezio.
Um,
Moving on. I already know who's going to win this one.
yeah. I mean, I used to play Assassin's Creed a lot. I've mostly checked out at this point, but Ezio, I mean, those games, that was kind of prime, Assassin's Creed 2,
Mm-hmm.
Brotherhood, and like
Mm-hmm.
Revelations.
Revelations. Yeah.
Um, uh, was great. That was like a prime me playing Assassin's Creed. So, Ezio, I think is pretty great. And like, so yeah, Knuckles, whatever. I know they're
Yeah.
doing the TV show or whatever it is, but I don't really
Don't care.
care.
This one is interesting to me. Samus versus Agent 47. Now, hear me out. Here is why this is awesome. Samus, obviously, Metroid, she actually does have some character development. Not a whole lot, but way more than I would say Link or Mario or even most of the Mario or most of the other Nintendo ones. So there's something there. Plus,
Mm.
Samus is she's awesome. Like she's just a total baller. Like I mean, literally, she turns into a ball. But also, like, she's a baller. Sorry, that was bad. But Agent 47, I would have thought that Samus would have blown Agent 47 away until Hitman 1, 2, and 3 over the last, whatever that is, 6 or 7 years. Those are incredible games. Now, I don't know how much of our server has played them, but I tell you what, those are some of the
Yeah,
most
that would
fun
be my
and
thing.
yeah, like that the propensity for our server to know that. But those games, if you've never played those Hitman games, especially the World of Assassination, like the new thing that they're doing now, so good. Just remarkable pieces of game out there.
A lot of creativity from my understanding too, like in terms of execution
Mm-hmm.
of like your assassinations and all the different routes you can take. Like, yeah, all the different routes you can kind of go. There's really a lot of flexibility built into it in a way that's, I guess, quite interesting. I've never really played any of the Hitman games, so I can't say much. And Samus, it's funny. I didn't really play the Metroid games. All of my connection with Samus is from Smash Bros. Because
Oh,
Samus was my main.
sure,
I guess is still my main in Smash Bros. So,
sure.
um, yeah, that's it. So I would likely choose Samus more for that. But yeah, I could see this one being interesting. I feel like Samus will win again. Just my impression of our server,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Maybe more people have kind of played the Hitman games or sort of been exposed to some of that content. Because I've watched videos on YouTube of people doing like different ways of approaching it and different ways of doing missions and like all these different challenges as it relates to Hitman that you can accomplish, and it's pretty cool. So I haven't played the games, but even I've been exposed to some like content related to the games.
Yeah. And Sean Bean is in it, and Sean Bean is great. Number
It
12.
is great.
This is a runaway for me. Crash versus Pac-Man. Pac-Man. I think that Crash is just gonna
I hope
absolutely
so.
dominate Pac-Man.
Crash is my boy.
Yeah.
So I hope I got my little Crash.
There he is.
I got my little Crash figure here.
Is that 3D
So,
printed?
yeah, I 3D printed it. A
It's
little bit of
awesome.
trial and error there, but I ended up getting it to work. So yeah, Crash is my boy. Grew up with him. Love love that like franchise. That if anyone hasn't played it, if you have a PlayStation, um, I don't think it's on anything else. I could be mistaken now. Maybe they did release it on other things. But the Insane trilogy is a lot of fun. Like the remaster of kind of the original in terms of like classic platforming stuff. It's really good. And then Crash 4, It's About Time, something
Hmm.
like that,
Hmm.
um, is also a great game. It's really fun. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know how far Crash will get. I don't know what the connection with Crash is for the server. But yeah, I think Pac-Man, I mean, iconic certainly in the history of gaming, but I think Crash will take this one, and I'm interested to see kind of how far he goes
Yeah.
and how it ends up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
By the way, the Insane trilogy available on Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and on Steam. So there you go.
on everything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if it's ever on sale or something, I highly recommend it. You're up for something like pretty like straightforward, but like fun platforming
Hmm.
games. They did a really good job remastering them, and they're a
Yeah.
lot of fun. They're a good time.
Number
And
13,
one,
Nathan Drake versus number 52, the Z-shaped Tetris block. I wanted to throw the Z-shaped Tetris block in there as a little bit of joke, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how freaking iconic the Z-shaped Tetris block actually is. And then Nathan Drake is
it
Nathan
is,
Drake.
yeah.
I personally hate is a strong word. I dislike the Uncharted franchise. I just never have. They're boring to me.
Oh,
It's just a super boring series. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
tough. It's a weird matchup. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like as you say, the more you think about it, the more you're like, well, yeah. I mean, that the Tetris block actually is a very iconic sort of piece of gaming. Um, I mean, in terms of a character bracket, then I this is one where the Tetris block might win because people will just love the
Kitsch.
humor of it, and I could see like the Tetris block kind of winning this. I feel like that would be
Funny.
unfortunate. I get that you're not into Uncharted, but finding them boring is interesting because if there's any series that's basically just like playing a movie that's like a really meant to be like a really cinematic experience, which you'd think would be sort of the opposite of boring,
Nope.
like would be kind of exhilarating and be very engaging, it would be the Uncharted series.
Nope.
And Nathan Drake, I think, is a pretty well fleshed out character. Certainly getting into like Uncharted 4, I think he's very well developed in terms of his relationships, his upbringing. Like you see a lot of character development. So there's a lot there, and I think he is pretty iconic, certainly from PlayStation sort of icons. And so I hope he wins this. I hope the humor of it doesn't sort of sway this for the Tetris block to advance. But yeah, I mean, I played all the Uncharted's. I really enjoy them. So, I'm definitely voting for Nathan Drake here. I hope he advances. How far he'll make it again, who knows? But, I
Good
hope he
call.
makes a little noise.
Ellie versus Sylvanas Windrunner. Here's the one that we talked about. I think Ellie's going to win. I think Ellie's going to
I
win.
would assume so. Tough matchup. I have no
Yes.
frame of reference for Sylvanas Windrunner because I've never played WoW. But from my understanding, what I've sort of seen and heard from people is that she is a very iconic character. I have seen the cinematic that the image for her there is taken from, so like I have seen some of that, so I have that kind of exposure. I think Ellie is just kind of too much, too iconic, too and just such a well developed character. Like this is maybe getting away from like iconic, more just into like how well developed a character
Hmm.
she is, and like I wonder if the second game will sort of tarnish a bit of Ellie and Joel, because that one was so kind of mixed in terms of its reception. But the first one is considered such a masterpiece. There's enough defenders of the second one, and of course there was the show, that I feel like Ellie probably wins this unless there's a lot more WoW fans than I know of in the server.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Joel versus Dante coming up next, and number 15 versus number 50. I don't know what to say here. This is a blah one for me.
Yeah, it's whatever. I haven't really played the Devil May Cry games, or like a little bit I have, but not much, so I don't have a lot of understanding of Dante. Joel, I feel like Joel will probably take this one, unless again there's a lot of Devil May Cry fans I don't know of.
Ah,
So whatever.
hopefully not. Kratos versus Sackboy. This is an easy win for the God of War himself.
It's a
Moving
fun
on.
one. It's a little bit of a fun one, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Kratos is a great character, especially
Yes.
at least in the newer, like in the original trilogy, less so. The new like two games very well, I think, well fleshed out,
Yes.
kind of established characters. So yeah, not a lot to say.
Yes. Agreed. Solid Snake versus Mewtwo. This is another one that I had pinned here. I don't know, again, the affinity for our server for Metal Gear, Solid in
Metal Gear,
particular. I do know the affinity for our server in terms of Mewtwo. I do know that Mewtwo is
Pokemon.
also, or yeah, Pokemon. I do know that also Mewtwo is akin to God, essentially, in Pokemon. There is a very, like, deity, divine-like quality to what Mewtwo is doing. However, Solid Snake,
Sure.
particularly in Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, Solid Snake has that thing about him that is just so cool. I know who I would vote for, but what do you think, Templar?
I feel like this is going to be Mewtwo. I don't know how much of a character Mewtwo is in the games. I would assume not much of one at all. I know there's been a lot of sort of like animated stuff and like movies and whatever where Mewtwo has gotten more, maybe more some development as an actual character. In the games, I imagine beyond being iconic, there's probably not a lot there. I grew up on the Metal Gear franchise, like
Yep.
Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty for the PS2 is like a big one. I played that game so much. Really love that game. I think it's fantastic. You know, graphically, it doesn't really hold up now, but that's one that I would love to see them go back and maybe redo a little, like redo, kind of do like a remaster of it. Snake Eater is great, a very different setting. Like four is great, although a little overboard on the cutscenes. And five
Maybe.
is like a genuine masterpiece, and it's like a game that lets you do so much and like really does an open world in a way that I think so few games have, or maybe
Yep.
even still haven't. Like
Yep.
and Solid Snake, you know, some of the plots of those games are kind of convoluted, but Snake is a real character. Like he's a real
Yes.
person with like real emotions, with real
Yep.
motives. You know, there's a lot of depth to him. So I
Yep.
think in terms of who would I like to see win this and who do I think is a more interesting character, I think Solid Snake is clearly the winner there. The affinity for Pokemon is great within our server.
Mhm.
So I do not know if that will be enough to sway this for Mewtwo.
Mhm.
That's what I'm interested in seeing, because I think this is a case of, for our server specifically, in the broader world, I feel like Snake should win this one. In our server, I don't know. It's hard
Hmm.
for me to know to understand which way this is going to go. What's
I
your
could.
thoughts on it?
So, Metal Gear Solid 5 is one of my all-time favorite games. It's in my top 10 at
So
least,
good.
if not my top 5. It is such a good game.
It's
And
just
Kiefer Sutherland is Snake, and I know it's just a lot of like, ugh, like a lot of grunting and stuff, but Snake is an actual character. Mewtwo's fine. Like I remember I caught Mew and Mewtwo back in the original Pokemon. Like it is what it is. I hope Solid Snake's going to win. I don't think he is. So this is probably going to be our sign off for Solid Snake. I love you. I miss you, and I'll go back and
probably.
play Metal Gear Solid 5 in your honor. As we move on to Ratchet and Clank versus Wario, I hope Wario doesn't see the light of day here. Not that I dislike Wario, but he's not a character. He just that's the only thing that Wario is known for. Whereas Ratchet and Clank, there's an actual cool bit of synergy and storytelling, especially in the latest Ratchet and Clank. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Wario is to me sort of like the worst of these Mario characters that are like, none of them are really characters other than like you said, maybe Bowser a bit. Like Wario's like really not a character and not that iconic and just kind of annoying. So like I really
Yeah,
hope Ratchet and Clank make this. Like, you know,
yeah.
they're a really good duo. They're both very interesting characters. The games are very fun, and like the newer games,
Mm.
as you said, have been quite good. So this is one where I just like, I really hope Wario doesn't go anywhere here. Like this isn't. There's nothing there. There's like nothing there to go with. Like, come
No,
on. You never
no.
know. Again,
There,
Mario characters, it's always hard, tough to say, but
And then another double barrel that we got here, Jack and Daxter versus Pikachu. Now, this one's a little bit tougher. I think Pikachu's going to go,
Tough
even though
matchup.
Pikachu is not. It is a tough matchup for Jack and Daxter. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, because I think Pikachu, just by iconic status alone, is going to carry this one.
Yeah, again, not a character, right? Like, certainly in the games, not a character. There's been so much media around
Right.
Pikachu, though, that I feel like Pikachu will win, especially with the love for Pokemon in the server. I mean, in terms of
Right.
characters, Jack and Daxter is an interesting one because Jack like doesn't speak, and Daxter is the one who talks and kind of is
True.
the character, in many
Yeah.
ways. But for what Crash was for man, Naughty Dog just like made bangers. Like the PlayStation
Mm.
1, all the Crash games, they were so good. PlayStation 2, the Jack and Daxter games, like all three of them are excellent games. And then getting into PS3, obviously you had Uncharted, and then you had The Last of Us and whatever. Like, man, they just
Mhm.
made hits though. Like it was kind of wild. And I have a real affinity for Jack and Daxter. I was a PlayStation boy, still am to some extent, although less thrilled about many of the decisions Sony makes these days. But so Jack and Daxter's kind of close for me, so I'm going to be going for that. But I feel like this is probably it for them. This is just a real tough first round matchup for them in terms of
Mm.
iconic character, even if their opposition isn't a real character. So tough one.
Yeah. This one, I actually Googled this. Master Chief versus Kirby. I actually typed this into Google and said Master Chief versus Kirby, and found a Reddit post that was literally asking who would win in a fight between Master Chief and Kirby, and the responses were more
Fight.
surprising than you would think. Yeah, they would posit that Kirby could expand to swallow Master Chief, but Master Chief also could just like do one of the armor lock abilities and armor lock inside of Kirby's thing, and could never be spit out. And so it was kind of a test of wills at that point, who could last longer. Um, I
Sure.
I'm gonna this one's an easy win for me in terms of Master Chief. I don't know that the server is going to say it's an easy win, but Master Chief as a character,
I think
he
I
starts
think it
out
will.
very much as the silent protagonist, but the more you even play the first one, Combat Evolved, you see Master Chief, you see his mind kind of turning as to what the Flood is. And then you get to Halo 2, and when he teams up with the Arbiter, and yes, there is a gruff, you have to get past the gruffness and all that, but when he teams up with the Arbiter in Halo 2 and Halo 3, there is definitely a character arc there. I think 343 kind of screwed it up in 4-5 and Infinite, but that's neither here nor there. Master Chief as a character wins. Kirby is just a ball of goo that sucks things in my opinion.
Also, I just don't know how much affinity there is for Kirby. I mean, he's certainly iconic, but like beyond Smash Bros, I have no connection to Kirby. Like I know Kirby had his own games. I don't know if they even still exist. Like they're not still
They
making
were good.
Kirby games, are they? Like,
No, they were good.
oh, maybe they were, but like, how many people now have like a real frame of reference for Kirby games? Like, I played Mario and I played Donkey Kong and I played a lot of these older franchises. I never played Kirby. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the connection people have to Kirby would be. For me, now it would just be, for most people, I imagine it would be Smash Bros. And that's probably about it. I don't think
Mm.
that's enough. I think Master Chief is so iconic, and as you say, like actually does have some character development. There is more to him than just like the silent protagonist.
Yep.
That I think this should be a walk away from Master Chief, and I hope it is, and I think it will be.
Yes. Good. Good answers. Let's move on to the Arbiter. Speaking of Halo, the Arbiter versus Leon. Now, both of them actually have character development. I think
Well,
the Arbiter is a little less well known than Leon, just because Resident Evil was a huge smash, and most people don't remember that the Arbiter is technically an elite, but like that's who you play as. My vote is going to be for the Arbiter simply because I didn't really do a whole lot of Resident Evil, but I can see both of them. I can see this one being a closer one than one would think.
I have no idea what's going to happen in this one because like maybe people will have enough of a connection to Halo, and they'll just vote for the Arbiter. I feel like whoever wins this is just going to win because people have to make a choice here.
Hmm.
And or maybe they'll just choose the Arbiter because they have more of attachment to Halo.
Hmm.
Maybe there's more of a kind of affinity for Resident Evil than I know of in the server, but I don't have a ton. Like I've played some. I played like I beat Resident Evil 4, which Leon is the main character in, like is the protagonist of Resident Evil 4. But even I would probably vote for Arbiter. Like I don't know. I just don't have enough connection to the franchise. I don't know if enough people in the server have enough connection. I feel like Arbiter will win, but I feel like this is a bit of a like want matchup. Like whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Cortana versus Jill Valentine. Yeah.
Or Resident Evil. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cortana, I feel like will win. She's iconic not only in terms of like that, Microsoft wants to force her on us in terms of our operating systems, but also from the games, or maybe that'll work against her. I don't know. Maybe that'll mean maybe people want to like vote for Jill because they're sick of Cortana and they don't want to like deal with that. But I think Jill is sort of. I mean, I don't have enough connection to Resident Evil to know what people's thoughts are about the different protagonists of Resident Evil. So like maybe Jill is more iconic or more people are more connected to her. But I feel like this should be Cortana.
I agree. And I also think that with Jill, like Leon has more to do with Jill than in the game than Jill does. Jill to me always felt like the cleanup character, and maybe that's just kind of she was always like the second run, and it sucks for her. She's interesting in one of the remakes, but that's about it. Now, this is one that we talked about pre-show, and I want to hear your thoughts because you had specifically picked out Marcus Phoenix versus Arthur Morgan. So, Templar, take it away.
So, I'll ask you because you were an Xbox boy and like you were a real Halo guy. Were you a Gears of War guy as well?
I played Gears, but I would always if I had time to play something. I'd rather be playing Halo. And that's just because that's where I was in my mindset. Sure. Also, I never really clicked with like the broed out, what was, it felt like the Fast and the Furious version of Halo. I never really clicked with it. Whereas Arthur Morgan, I'm going to spoil. So like if you've never played Red Dead 2, please turn off whatever you're watching here for the next like 30 seconds. But I legitimately cried when Arthur died at the end. Now, I chose the quote-unquote Paragon path for my first playthrough and all of those other things, and, like, he starts coughing up blood, he's got tuberculosis, and, like, towards the very end of this game, towards the very end of Arthur's playthrough, his horse dies, and so the horse that's been with you, like, dies, which is, like, what the heck? And then he climbs up on a cliff, and then he ends up dying as well, after you do your whole kind of suicide mission. And I legitimately cried at the end of that game.
It's an excellent ending. Yeah. And Arthur, I imagine, will win this. He should win this. Why I wanted to highlight this one is just this is one of those ones where it's just a tough matchup for Marcus. And I don't know what people in the server's affinity for Gears is. I played all the Gears of War games, all except 5. So I played all the like at least the 4 main ones. I don't remember if there's like some spin-off stuff, but like I played the first 4 mainline ones. And Marcus is a real character, and like I know it's got that bro vibe, like you say, but he's a real character. There's real relationships that happen between him and the other guys in the squad. Those games are a lot of fun. Like how well they've aged, I'm not entirely sure. Like I played the 4th one not that long ago, and I had some fun with it. And Marcus shows up in that one as like a sort of secondary character, but you play as him for the first 3, and he's a good character. Like I honestly think he is. I think he's pretty identifiable. Maybe not iconic on the level of many of these other characters, but I think like for Xbox, that was like a really solid franchise. He is a character that had depth, like had 3 dimensions to him, like probably a little I just wanted to highlight it because I think he's unheralded. I don't know how much connection there is to the franchise in general now. And this just kind of sucks in terms of matchups for him. Because like Arthur is a more interesting character. He should win this matchup, to be clear. But like I kind of wish Marcus was against something easier in the first round because just to be able to talk about him a little bit more. So I just wanted to give him a little shine because like there is something there. He is a real character. Like that's that is something that I wanted to kind of point out. That's all.
That's good. That's real good. Moving on, Cloud versus Aloy. I think this is going to be a runaway for
Tough.
Cloud, especially since the resurgence of the Final Fantasy sevens. But it is tough because Aloy actually, as a character, how much of the first? Did you ever
Aloy's
play the first Horizon?
I beat the first one. I
Okay.
didn't get that far into the second one, but the first one I played and love. Like
Yes.
I know there's been a little pushback on some of these open world PlayStation titles, but like Horizon Zero Dawn, at least like for me, there's some elements of it that like whatever, some of the side missions, like okay. But like as a narrative, like I think the story in that game is excellent, and I think Aloy is an excellent character. So like this is another one sort of similar to the last one, except even more so maybe tough. Just tough matchup. Like I kind of wish Aloy had been against someone else here, because Cloud I think almost certainly wins this. I know there's a lot of love for Final Fantasy in the server. I know there's a lot of people who've talked about playing the like remastered, like the redone new Final Fantasy 7. So I'm almost certain Cloud will win. It just kind of sucks because Aloy I think really is a good character.
Yeah.
And like the first Horizon I think is a really excellent game. So like
Yes.
this one just again it kind of sucks. Like it just this is a really brutal matchup for her in the first round. And I kind of would have liked to see her go farther. Like this is one of the worst possible matchups. Cloud is one who might have legs to make it to like the semis or like
Yeah.
make a pretty deep run in this. So like it just sucks. If she was against like half of this or like almost maybe even 2/3 of this, at least for me, I would choose her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll choose her in this matchup because I don't have that connection to Final Fantasy VII, but I will be in the minority on that, and I know that.
Yep. I agree. I agree with you. I'm not going to spoil anything for the Horizon thing because it's really good. But Aloy has a remarkable character turn, whereas Cloud feels like kind of a flat pancake until the very end of Final Fantasy VII, where there is some stuff like there's legitimately like they do a good job with Cloud, but Aloy. Dang, dude. I remember playing that game with my kids, and like all of us were just like, this game is really, really good. So I don't know.
The revelations in Zero Dawn are so good.
Yep.
Like again,
Yep.
I know there's been some pushback against all the open world PlayStation games, and people want to kind of lump them together.
Yep.
Man, the storytelling, and the story revelations, and just seeing the history and like discovering things. Man, it was so good in Zero Dawn. Like I really, really enjoyed it.
Agreed. We're going to move on to Sephiroth versus Cade. I think this is a tough one, honestly, just because we do have a preponderance
Tough one for our server.
Yes, yeah, because I think this is going to be a hotly contested one. Again, going back to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth remake, all that. And then it seems like all of the Destiny players have come out of the woodwork for the Final Light, Final Flight, Final Fight, whatever it is, Last Light.
Sure, whatever.
So I don't know. I would vote Cade in this one just because Sephiroth as a villain is completely overwrought and overdone, and there's no real character arc there. He's just pretty much evil the entire time, just in different ways. Whereas Cade actually has he's got heartfelt moments in everything that I've actually played of him. But I don't know. What do you think here?
I don't see. This is a tough one. Like I don't have connection to either. I think you laid it out. Like how I am sort of looking at it. I'm just interested to see the way this one goes. Because yes, as you say, love for Final Fantasy. I know there's a lot of love for 7 in the server, but there's also a lot of Destiny love in the server.
Yeah.
So this is one where, maybe people will vote for people will probably vote for Cloud, I assume, but maybe they'll vote for Cade here and be like, well, there's one Final Fantasy 7 kind of character getting through, but I know there's a lot of love for Sephiroth as a character. So I don't know. This one I think you laid it out how I am looking at it, and I'm just curious to see which way it falls.
Donkey Kong versus Sub-Zero. My guy, we have gotten into some of the throwaway ones. Sub-Zero is a character only in the movies, although in the later Mortal Kombat's X and whatever the other one is,
there's a story, yeah.
Yeah. And Donkey Kong, originally was Cranky Kong, and I don't know. I don't really care about this one. What do you think?
I imagine it'll be Donkey Kong just because of, again, iconic. This one's a little tough. I would probably vote for Donkey Kong on this one. Then the following one, I think I would vote differently. But on this one, I think Donkey Kong is iconic enough that he'll get through purely based on that. I don't know how much connection there is to Mortal Kombat as a franchise in the server.
Hmm.
And like in the more modern games, they do try these different stories, and like so there is some character there. In the old ones, it's just like a fighter on the screen, and that's kind of it. But um, Donkey Kong, similarly to Mario and a lot of these other ones, no real character, just just a it's just your playable character, just
Yep.
a playable thing. There's
Yep.
nothing really there, but I think that will probably be enough to get past Sub-Zero. I've never gotten the impression that the fighting game scene is very big in our server,
Hmm.
or Mortal Kombat more specifically. So I think it'll be Donkey Kong. I think it'll be like 90%.
Hmm. And then Diddy Kong versus Scorpion. Just copy paste the exact same article or argument.
I guess, like I said, I would go the other way here, though. Like I think of the two, I prefer Scorpion. I think Scorpion's a very iconic character, more so than Diddy Kong to me. Like Mortal Kombat is a storied franchise. Our server might not have a ton of affinity for fighting games, but been a very identifiable character for like decades at this point.
Hmm.
Diddy Kong, Donkey Kong, I could see Diddy Kong absolutely winning this, but like for me, I think Scorpion probably should win this. Like even just based on being iconic. Like I think Scorpion is more iconic than Diddy Kong is. Against Donkey Kong, maybe not, but Diddy Kong, I think Scorpion should win based on that. I don't think he will, probably just because there's a lot of connection to Nintendo stuff in the server, and I think not for fighting games, but I would lean Scorpion here.
Lara Croft versus Ken. This is a Lara Croft win, hands down, in my opinion. There is nothing to Ken other than punching and really taking care of cars when you get to the special bonus round in Street Fighter 2. Lara Croft actually, especially in the newer games, the kind of reboot there's a really
Reboot was good.
Yeah, there's like an orphan type story happening that I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, the rebooted Lara Croft games are quite good. The third, there was somewhat diminishing returns. I kind of tapped it. Like the third one, I wasn't super into, but the first two I think are quite good, and then the third one is just, like I was kind of less interested. But yeah, the 2013 one and then 2015, I think they were both like the first two in the reboot. I think are really excellent. Lara Croft is a very iconic character. There is a lot of effort to make her a character in the newer games, not just sort of an anatomically pleasing image like in the old games. So, which is great. I really liked her character a lot. Well, I mean, come on.
No, you're not wrong. You are not wrong.
No one's going back to those old Lara Croft games and being like, oh, look at the story and like, what a great character Lara Croft is.
Yeah.
In the new one, she is, and she's not a sexualized character in the newer games. Like she's a really like fleshed out heroine. And they do it in a very interesting way. Like she's like a Nathan Drake, except like maybe even more well realized, at least early, like for the early Uncharted games for Lara Croft, and the games are quite fun too.
Yeah.
So Ken, if it was against like Ryu or like Ryu, if it was against Ryu, the matchup might be a little bit more interesting just because he's also very iconic. But I think Lara should walk away with this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Lara
Croft. And what about the Doom guy versus Lara? What about the Doom guy versus Ryu?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if people like Doom.
I do.
The new Dooms have been very like celebrated. Doom and Doom Eternal have been quite well celebrated within gaming generally. I just don't know what the affinity for either of these would be within the server. Like again, Ryu might win just on being iconic because he's a very iconic character, even if you're not into fighting games. But there's been a real resurgence of Doom related stuff since the 2016, I think it was, Doom game came out. So I have no idea which way this one goes. Like I have no idea what the sentiment in our server is towards either of these characters. Ryu, if I'm just choosing more iconic, but I think Doom guy, and they actually do make some effort to make him a character in the newer games, from my understanding. Like he's not really fleshed out, but there is some attempt made to actually make him a character. Where in the older ones, he was absolutely not.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Another one where just interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, same. I was going to say that. We're down to our last couple here. This one should be a win for Mr. Commander Shepard or Miss Commander Shepard, depending on which one you picked. But we got Gordon Freeman of Half-Life fame.
Yeah. Should I?
Half-Life great games, and then you should have like done maybe the half and half.
Should I have done FemShep? Yeah. The half and half. Yeah.
Half and half. Yeah, the half.
I mean, the half and half might have been interesting. I mean, this is the Shepherd from the trailers.
Yes.
So like that's the Shepherd I went with.
Yes.
It was never the female Shepherd in the trailers, I don't think. So I don't know how much I know there's some Mass Effect love in the server, so I imagine Shepard will win this one. Like the vote between Sora and Rex was quite close. So there must be a decent amount of Mass Effect love. And I think Half-Life, I mean, I know there was Half-Life Alyx not that long ago, but like I feel like Half-Life is largely a dead franchise to most people.
Yes.
So, and I don't think Gordon Freeman is in Half-Life Alyx either. Like I don't know. I didn't play that game, but I'm not that I'm aware. I don't think you play as him.
No.
So in the history of gaming, a very significant character, Half-Life and Half-Life 2 being incredibly important games, I don't think there's a lot of connection for most people now. And I think even though you could make probably similar arguments about Mass Effect, I think there's more affinity and more connection just because of their being more modern and the kind of how celebrated at least the original trilogy was. Yeah, so
yep,
I agree. Shepard should probably walk away with this one. I've never heard anyone talk about Half-Life in the server ever. So,
yep. Sam Fisher versus Minecraft Steve. This has got a 100% or a 98% Minecraft Steve win written all over it. Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell. It's an old school game. I don't remember a whole lot of Splinter Cell outside of the one that I played on PS1 on one of an emulator thing a long time ago. That was about it.
Oh, I played a bunch of Splinter Cell back in the day. Like I played a lot of these games, like the old ones, because they were PlayStation games. I played them. They were fun. They were a good time. I have no connection to Sam Fisher as a character. I don't remember anything about it. I have no connection to Minecraft either, because I've never played Minecraft. So I will vote for Sam Fisher in this matchup, but I do not see it going well for him. Like Splinter Cell is it's like a dead franchise. Like it's not something anyone knows. And unlike other ones where like the impact was so great, it's like still significant now. I don't think it really is for Splinter Cell. So
that's a good point.
Minecraft is still huge. Like Minecraft is unreasonably big still.
I mean, my kids still play it, and I have adults that I let log into a server in my home that play it. So like,
no hate. I just like I have no exposure to it. It's not a game that I'm interested in at all. And like, but the popularity of that game is baffling to me. Like just how big it is kind of unreal.
Yep.
Like Minecraft Steve might be a dark horse in this whole thing.
No,
literally just because of how much of a juggernaut Minecraft is. Maybe not, but like if you want like a kind of out there dark horse, Minecraft Steve, man, like Minecraft is just so big. It's wild. Like I don't know. It constantly is amazing to me, like how popular that game is. So you never know. Probably not, but I'm calling my shot now. So if it happens,
I mean,
I have it on video.
Yeah, I'll take my hat off to you. I will tip my cap to you if Minecraft Steve gets into even the quarterfinals. How's that?
We'll see.
Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have Geralt, Sir Geralt of The Witcher, and Tom Nook, the one and only gangsta Tom Nook himself, the man who wants to take all your bells and leave you in debt all the time. I think I looked at the list, and I thought this was probably the funniest matchup out of all of them. It seems like two polar opposites until you realize that Geralt kills for a living and Tom Nook will kill you as well if you don't pay him back. So I honestly don't know who wins this one. I know that Geralt and The Witcher, especially The Witcher 3, they're some of my all-time favorite games. The Witcher 3 in particular, not 1 and 2. They're fine. The Witcher 3 is just a magnificent thing, but also Tom Nook has had a moment with a lot of people in our server, especially those that grew up playing DS and DSi and, you know, the Animal Crossing games on there. How much exposure do you have to Tom Nook, by the way? I know you don't do a whole lot of like Nintendo games.
Sure. I mean, I did have a Switch for a while, and I did play the Animal Crossing game for Switch. I forget what the subtitle of it was, but um, I did play it, so I do have some exposure to Tom Nook. This is Geralt. I'll be upset. This is one where I'll be legitimately upset if Geralt loses this. Um,
Hmm.
because Tom Nook's not a character. Like, Tom Nook might be
Nope.
iconic, I guess,
He's a gangster.
within the world of Animal Crossing. He's an original gangster, Tom Nook.
Yes,
But
he is.
Geralt is a real character, and The Witcher 3 is one of the best RPGs of all time. He's phenomenal in it. Like, he's a deep and interesting and fleshed out, well-developed character who is iconic in his own right. So, like, this is a funny matchup. I know people have a lot of love for Animal Crossing. Fair enough, I get it. It's what you play. I really hope Geralt wins this. Just at the pure, like, I hope characters who are actually interesting win matchups. I hope Geralt wins. I could see Tom Nook winning. I know there's a lot of love for Animal Crossing. And it's like a pretty, you know, it's a franchise that has a pretty long history. You know, I get all that. I hope, in my heart of hearts, I hope Geralt wins this matchup.
Fair enough. I can go with that one. I think that's it. This has been a long episode. We're not going to be doing these long episodes the entire time because as things happen, brackets are going to trim down, and so the next time you will see our faces, you will see us doing another Roundtable Rumble with the round of 32. We're in the round of 64, so we'll go down to the round of 32. We'll celebrate and mourn. Maybe not mourn, maybe just laugh at those that didn't make it through, and then we'll talk about the next matchups coming up. Voting starts when? June something?
10th. June 10th.
June 10th, ladies and gentlemen. Voting starts on June 10th. Yep, absolutely. It's going to be a glorious time. Before we wrap up, any last words, any final thoughts, any kind of well wishes that you want to give to any of these characters?
I mean, thank you to Aloy for coming out. Thank you to Marcus Phoenix for coming out. It is an honor to be included. You know, if you
thanks for being a bro.
It's great. It's great of you to show up for the first round. We appreciate it. If you haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, I encourage you to do so if that option is available to you. If you haven't played some of the Gears of War, I do not know how well like the first two have aged, but I would say it's a franchise that might surprise you if you checked it out. But yeah, we're gonna say goodbye to some big names. In our next round, we'll talk about, you know, part of our discussion. We'll be talking about how some of these matchups went, kind of going through quickly who ended up winning. Are there any surprises? And then we'll get into our next rounds. So, you know, the episodes will get a little shorter as we go along, but I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm looking forward to some interesting matchups. Like, I'm curious to see what it comes down to, who kind of ends up getting through, maybe because they have a bit of an easier road. But there's a lot of great characters in this bracket. There's not a lot of easy roads to take, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to see what way people go. I'm looking forward to all of the discussion in the Discord about, you know, fighting for your guys and people making the justifications for the characters they voted for and defense of this character or that. Like, you know, I'll be jumping in there. I'll be fighting for Geralt. I'll be mourning him if Tom Nook, you know, if original gangster Tom Nook succeeds and boots him out.
Oh, gee.
So, yeah, hey man, there's some ones I'm pulling for in this. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like, this is a great one, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it.
Absolutely. You will be able to vote, like we said, June 10th. Until then, we love you. Thanks so much for joining in on this version of the summer 2024 Roundtable Rumbles. We'll see you then. Ta-ta for now.